That's not terrible. I was expecting to get like that, have a nice comedic little "you get what you pay for" thing, but no, it's not that bad.
Well, wait a few hours.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Wait. Yep. Aftertaste. Tastes like sweat. Yep, sweat. Yep,
Sex or sweat?
It tastes like sex.
Well, both. It kind of tastes like a jockstrap, so. Kind of tastes like a jockstrap. Yes, sir.
And we're live here on the spoiler room. I don't want to know how you know that tastes like a jockstrap, Scott. I'd rather not.
Well, college years, man.
College years. we just put it up.
Experimental years.
It was experimental. It was okay back then. Jockstraps were in. But
and out.
Sorry.
In the words of Cole Porter, experiment. So
But yes, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, another episode of the Spoiler Room. It is March. We're doing mature animated films, and I have a great crew with me tonight to cover today's film. We're doing another Ralph Bakshi film. Last week, the animated film was American Pop. And this week, we are going back to the fantasy realm with Ralph Bakshi's Fire and Ice from 1983. And joining me in the room tonight, first off, we have the BFD back. It is Glenn Bittner. Hello, Glenn.
Hello.
And how are you this evening?
Yes.
Excellent answer. And next to Glenn, he is back with us. He was with us for some of the animated films and some sci-fi episodes, and he is with us once again in the spoiler room. It is Jason. Hello, Jason. How are you?
Hello, Mark. I am doing very well tonight. Thank you.
Glad you could join us. And your little icon there on the Google Hangouts, I like that it's Tarzan fighting.
Yeah, that's a Frazetta painting from Jungle Tales of Tarzan ace paperback that I have. So
nice. Very fitting as well with Kong Island coming out this weekend. So you got the ape in there.
I'm a huge pulp fiction fan, so hats off to that too. So
yeah, that is very cool. And next to him, returning once again, he joined us on Logan. It is the man of mystery. It is Ray Sidman. Hello, Ray. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, glad you could make it back. And last but definitely not least, in his house, the man, Scotty D. Hello, Scott. How are you?
I'm good. Sometimes I'm least, though. So, depends on what day you're catching me on. And been a rough day. It's getting a little better, so hopefully not completely least.
Well, we are glad you could join us tonight to talk about Ralph Bakshi's Fire and Ice and the synopses per Mr. IMDb is: in an animated tale, a tiny village is destroyed by a surging glacier, which serves as the deadly domain for the evil ice lord Nekron. The only survivor, a young warrior, Larn, who vows to avenge this act of destruction. The evil continues, however, as Nekron's palace of ice heads straight towards Fire Keep, the great fortress ruled by the good king Gerald. When Gerald's beautiful daughter Tigra is abducted by Nekron's subhuman ape-like creatures, Larn begins a daring search for her. What results is a tense battle between good and evil, surrounded by the mystical elements of the ancient past. That's a really good synopsis. It looks like it was not written by anyone involved in the actual movie. No.
I was going to say that's a way to kind of make the plot sound a lot more involved than it really is.
Wow.
I may have missed something. That sounds like a 3-hour movie right there.
What film did they watch? So.
It's the Netflix description.
Yeah, no, the Netflix description would be completely off. It would be an animated tale about Neanderthals who attack a woman and a man rescues them.
Oh, and also it's animated.
And animated in Europe.
Again, also it's animated.
Like this,
what?
Right.
Netflix would also say, if you like this, then you'd love Mrs. Doubtfire.
Schindler's List.
And Babe, the talking pig. Oh, Netflix, you fiend, you. But back to Fire and Ice. Yes, Ralph Bakshi's another fantasy film. We covered one in our last animated month, which was Wizards, and this one is definitely more in the fantasy realm, coming out a year after Conan the Barbarian. And Glenn, what are your initial feelings when you first saw this film?
When I first saw it, I liked it. It felt kind of like a D&D movie to me when I first saw it. It also taught me that, dude, never trust random redheads you meet in the woods. Never. Redheads in the woods are never up to any good, ever. So, but yeah, I dug it. I dug it when I first saw it. I remember checking this out and liking it. Actually, when I first saw this was the same time when I first saw Wizards.
Oh, sure.
A friend of mine came over and he had them both on VHS. We watched them back to back.
Oh, nice. That's a heck of a double feature there.
That is.
That's a good double feature. That's when you nestle in for a while and just enjoy some fun films. So, do you revisit often, or have you watched it for a while? Or?
I just watched it again for this, but I've seen it probably 5 or 6 times, I'd say.
Nice. Again, it's a good pick, and it definitely fits well with Wizards. Actually, one they could almost be within the same world in many ways. So, Jason, how about you when you first experienced Fire and Ice?
I kind of had a vague memory of it. Kind of remember liking it, and then I checked it out again just about the same time that we did the Wizards episode, because we had been talking about it, and but I think that would have been like the second time I saw it, and then I just watched it for a third time just recently here with the commentary and things like that. So we certainly wouldn't get into more details, but I enjoy it. It's maybe a little uneven, and there's good things and bad things, but overall I do enjoy it.
Awesome. And how about you, Ray, with Fire and Ice? Your first experience with it?
Well, mine was kind of like Glenn, and I watched it around the same time as Wizards. I remember I was in high school, and there was just this period where I'm from small town Kansas, so there was suddenly this discovery of. I just remember all around the same time I watched heavy metal for the first time, and Fire and Ice and Wizards, and then the Rankin Bass 2 Hobbit. The Hobbit and the Return of the King. And I enjoyed it a lot, specifically Fire and Ice a lot, because it was a very D&D movie to me. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. At some point, shortly after that, I tracked it down on VHS. I want to say, I'm pretty sure it was a Good Times video.
I think so,
and
yeah.
I had that. Yeah, I had that for years. I now have the Blue Underground 2-disc set that, I figured, well, this is probably, higher quality than my Good Times VHS. So,
no,
yeah, but sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say there's something to say about VHS, but.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I don't know. I've been watching it now for a quarter of a century, something like that. I don't know how many times I've seen it. I would several at least.
Sure.
So I would also say it has its flaws. It is far from a perfect movie, but it's a cult favorite of mine.
Awesome. And Scotty D, your first experience with this film?
I can't remember the exact time specifically I saw this for the first time. I know it was sometime in the mid 80s. Now, I was a huge fan of Conan. The comic books, the Robert E. Howard stories, the Robert Jordan stories, the bastardizations by Elspeth de Camp, all of it. And and I knew who Ralph Bakshi was. I hadn't been able to see any of his movies yet, aside from Wizards, I think. And I think that, how I've talked on other podcasts about how I used to hop from video store to video store because this one will have titles that the other one didn't have. I think it was like a long time before I actually found one that carried Fire and Ice. Like they just didn't have it. I mean, I was aware of the movie, and it came out in that sweet spot year of 1983, like 82, 83, 84. That was like my prime nostalgia period. And I finally got a chance to see it on VHS, and I think by the time I saw it, I was like, yeah, it's like a feature-length Marvel Conan comic. Not Savage Sword, but, Conan the Barbarian, certainly, which isn't bad. I was like, it kind of reminded me of the era that where even though no one's like this in the movie, it kind of reminded that era of Conan comics from that period of time where there was maybe a 2 or 3 year period where Conan was wearing a blue shirt throughout everything, and it kind of reminded me of that period, which would have been around the time Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway were writing for Conan. They wrote the script too, and they should have been allowed to keep their original screenplay for Conan the Destroyer the next year, because if you ever get the chance to read the novelization of Conan the Destroyer, it's a lot better than Conan the Destroyer because it just wasn't as jokey, and it was definitely more R-rated, while still being just a fun adventure movie. This one, Fire and Ice, kind of felt like a mixture between D&D and like a prototype of, okay, how do we write a screenplay? And they just kind of they basically wrote a bunch of action sequences. And not bad action sequences. It was kind of entertaining. You could get me to watch just about anything fantasy, anything Conan, anything remotely like that around this period of time. And I think then as now I said, yeah, this is a pretty good one.
Yeah, I'll say it was a good one as well. My dad dug this movie. Again, as I've mentioned in the past, my parents took me to a lot of films, to the Oriental. I believe that's where they actually showed this film, was down there. And then, you'd run across it on cable or VHS and that. And I remember seeing it. Hadn't seen it for a while, but I do remember the characters and digging it quite a bit at that young age of 8. Which it is mature in a lot of ways, but it's still, I think it's still not. Kids could probably watch it. I'm sure people would probably throw a fit today, but because there's a lot of on-screen deaths. But overall, I dug it as a kid, and it stuck with me for a while. I think it was mainly because of the 3 characters, well, especially one character in particular, which we'll talk about in just a minute with this. But overall, it's been a while since I watched it, and watching it just recently for this episode, it made me realize that this is a fun film. It isn't a perfect, solid, really deep film, and there's some questionable decisions, which we'll get into a little later, that the plot takes, but it opens strong, I think. I mean, here we have the summary where they kind of catch you up the story so far, and then we open with these guys with basically axes and spears and that fighting a glacier. I mean, but it was a good way to introduce the Nekron character and the other characters, I thought. Jason, how did you feel about the way this film opened?
Yeah, it opened very similarly to Wizards, because Wizards had the same thing. It had the static illustrations and the voiceover, just like Fire and Ice, and then you jump into the action. I always thought the glacier was kind of, and I really like the animation of the glacier, but I thought it was a good opening, and kind of kicks off the action right away, and with Larn and fighting the subhumans, and it was a good way to kick it off.
Yeah, you're right. It did have a very similar opening vibe to Wizards. Would you agree with that, Glenn? That when you watch this, it really feels similar to at least the opening of Wizards.
Oh, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, a lot of it is, it's a trope that's in fantasy a lot, where you have some evil wizard who threatens, the last bastion of, decency in the world.
Yeah, he's always, and usually the villain is just doing it because he's an ass.
Yeah.
Because he has power and he just wants to crush people because he doesn't know what else to do with it.
Yeah.
So
And it's good we have no correlation to that in real life.
yeah.
I wasn't gonna say it.
Wow. You had to say that, Glenn.
It came up even quicker than I thought it would.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And scene.
So, well, mentioning power hungry, arrogant, villains. Yes, Nekron. I dug Nekron quite a bit in this film, and it's funny because you get the synopsis in the beginning, and you think the Juliana character, which is his mom, is going to be like the main heavy, but she's just been grooming Nekron to be the ultimate baddie, and I just dug how this guy was throughout the film. How just arrogant he was, and his powers and everything about him. I really thought they worked him well, and wrote up a pretty solid villain. What'd you think, Ray, on Nekron and how he was written?
Yeah, I thought that was almost a little. I thought there was some lack of balance in there, just because the first half of the movie he's total mama's boy,
Yeah,
and then the second half of the movie he's just total domineering evil jerk guy, which is actually how he's listed in the credits. So
it's after
I don't
name Nekron, right?
right, sure, that too. And I don't know, I just thought there was a lack of balance in there. I just thought, maybe have him having this show of force earlier on, or maybe have mom having more influence even later, because it's just kind of like there's this point in the movie where suddenly she has no sway over him whatsoever, and he's just taking control. And early on he's almost obsequious with her, toward her. It's like, well, okay. That said, yeah, he was a fine bad guy, and I enjoyed him, especially later in the movie. But at the same time, I kind of, in the first half of the movie, I was like, well, this is a little different. We've got the whole bad guy that's a mama's boy type thing. It's a little different.
Yeah, and I think maybe they were leaning towards, he was, as he's getting closer to Firekeep, he's getting a little more power hungry and realizing he might not need Mama anymore, though it's not really explored as deep as that. That's what I was kind of getting to, but I was kind of filling in the blanks because they do kind of make a hop with his character. Scott, how about you with Nekron?
That would have been great if we could have seen that be more pronounced, because I'm going to be honest with you, I thought there was an interesting dichotomy at the beginning of the movie, like, okay, and as this goes along, we're going to find out more about Nekron, right? And we never really do. Now, the Juliana character, that's his mother, right?
Yes.
You're not looking, okay. The Juliana character, of course, I liked her a lot because she's voiced, as is the narration, by Susan Tyrrell, and I love Susan Tyrrell, also from Wizards and Forbidden Zone, and just a million other great things. And so I was into like, oh yeah, let's hear more about this relationship. I'll be honest with you, by the end, he's just another boring villain, who, makes a lot of like orgasmic faces as the glacier moves forward, and and he either sits in the throne room or minces about the throne or whatever, and he's just not, oh yes, I'm so bored with my power, and I just kind of want to punch him in the dick. And
I thought those were constipation faces, not orgasm faces.
It could be, and judging like how you roll, I mean, they might be one and the same, but
Wow.
you know, but this is
I was
What was that, Ray? Did we lose Ray for a minute?
confused.
Oh.
Like, what's the deal? Disregard me, please. Carry on.
No. It's okay. And,
no, I
Glenn-
mean it's
Go ahead.
just a character. Sorry, I was just go on. I was just like that's. So I did think it was I'll agree. I wish that stuff was more pronounced, but I thought he was in the end. I thought he was kind of a dull, generic character, honestly.
Glenn, how about you? Your thoughts with Nekron?
My thoughts of Nekron. Well, first of all, he reminded me actually of Elric of Melbone from the Elric books. Just his appearance. His appearance does.
Yeah.
Which is every time I see this movie, I think, oh, that's not Elric. Elric's a bigger dick. But I think he's a good villain. I like his. I mean, it's he's very. I don't even know. It's like he doesn't even know why he does what he does anymore.
Yeah.
Because who said it? That I'm so bored with my power. Whoever said that? That's exactly it.
Yeah.
He's just bored now. But he doesn't know what else to do. He doesn't know what else to do because this is all he's good at.
Yeah, and he is good at it. I mean, and I will say, of the two sides, he may be the smarter of the two, because we have our Firekeep folk who actually our hero isn't from the Firekeep. From my understanding with it, he was from a smaller village. He didn't actually he wasn't actually part of the people of the Firekeep, was he?
Who, our hero? No.
Larn.
No, he's a small
yeah.
He was from the plains.
Right. So
Right.
he was from the plains.
The tribe got wiped out. Yeah.
Right.
Come on
Right.
now. You're saying he's smarter than the people who thought they could use spears against a giant wall of ice?
No, I'm saying the people. I'm saying that. Well, besides that, I'm just saying Nekron seems smarter in general versus even the people at Firekeep.
Oh, yeah.
Who's supposed to be the king, and that, and he sent. We get that scene where it sets up to how Tigra gets kidnapped, and we'll talk about her in a minute. But he sends those envoys over, and the good guys are dumb good. They're too trusting and just naive and don't
And whiny.
I didn't exactly care for most of the people of Firekeep for most of the film, because for when we do see them, because it's just like, really, what'd you think was going on? And you have Tigra, who's the princess, who, okay, I'll start off. When we first see her, she's sitting there and she's getting her lessons, and they're having this bit of dialogue, which I thought was interesting, where she's talking about, they're making me just learn and I don't get a chance to fight. But then the Neanderthal men, who are under Nekron's rule, secretly crawl up the tower and kidnap her, and she's suddenly damsel in distress. I'm like, well, okay, you were talking about wanting to fight people, but you didn't really seem to put up much of a fight. Scott, what'd you think about Tigra, the character, and especially that kidnap scene?
Well, when I think about Fire and Ice, I always think about one thing: boobs.
Boobs. I was just gonna say boobs.
So okay, maybe two things. It's all based on Frank Frazetta artwork.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, he makes his men these very Doc Savage, perfect specimens of muscle, and the women are very shapely and curvy, and Tigra, there's a lot of inconsistencies with it, because she does talk a good game, and then she gets, they kill her poor cat, which I was bummed out by. I was bummed out by more her killing her cat than her teacher, and she like screams, and she spends a lot of time in this movie being grabbed and like having like her little legs kicking while like somebody's carrying her out somewhere throughout this movie, because she spends a lot of time getting captured. She also has moments in the movie where she does show ingenuity and try to get out of her scrapes. Like after she's captured, she remains captured for a very short period of time until she like uses her comely charms, as they might say in a Frank Frazetta thing, to get out of it. And then there's another part where she does actually wind up saving the hero's life later on in the film, which I thought was a nice touch. But I mean, these are like moments in between where she is very much, just this rag doll that's tossed back and forth between captors throughout the whole movie, because it's a very traditional pulpy movie. And I don't know, you could make the argument if it's all tradition or if it's just a little bit of misogyny or what the deal is, honestly, with the Tigra character. It's a very problematic character.
I mean, she is. She was uneven. I mean, I liked her, but at the same time, she was uneven. Jason, how about you with Tigra? Would you say she was a bit uneven?
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously it's coming from the pulp tradition, and Edgar Rice Burroughs and Robert E. Howard, and, but I would have rather have seen a character like Red Sonja or Valeria or Belit from the Conan comics. I mean, Roy Thomas, wrote tons of issues. I mean, they could have done something more along those lines. I wish they would have, because it's an unfortunate, part of the story and the character that, there's flashes of, her being spunky and using her brain or trying to, help herself and not just be the damsel, but there's too much of the the other stuff too. It would have been better if they would have, I think, just had a stronger female character, more in the along the lines of like Red Sonja or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's maybe they wrote her that way just so that you can have a little more, so she doesn't outshine Larn. But there were moments where I'm like, all right, here we go. And then the next moment she's trying to cut chains with a knife.
Well,
she must not have gotten that far in her studies.
I mean, 1 minute she's actually, she's kind of, being secretive with the knife and she snuck it out of the drunk guy's, back loincloth or whatever. I'm like, okay, she'd be, and like, then like sitting there going, why are you trying to cut the chain? Why just not untie the chain from the dead guy? Yeah, there is some unevenness with her. What about you, Glenn? Any thoughts with Tigra?
She's a yo-yo.
Yeah.
It's like badass. Oh no, just pound his back helplessly. Badass, pound his back helplessly. Badass, pound his back helplessly. It was just back and forth. It's like it was two different characters. It's like, oh, I'm smart enough to sneak away here. Oh, I got caught again. All I can do is flail about like an idiot.
It did feel like that, and it was interesting because when he set it off, where she's mentioned that she didn't want to fight, and I understand she didn't have her training or anything, but I was kind of hoping for this kind of solid arc of, okay, she goes from the girl who was just being taught and being out in the wilderness or whatnot, kind of gets her street sense on, and by the end of the film, she's as badass, if not more badass than Larn, which isn't too difficult actually. But Ray, would you have liked to see a more solid arc with the Tigra character?
Yeah, I mean, she was, I like the description of her as a yo-yo. When she faces Nekron, she's all cool and calm and collected and willing to stare him down. But, earlier in the movie when she's captured by Team Troglodyte, she just flips right over to Kardashian mode. And she's helpless, and like you said, she's taken a knife to a chain. Like, okay, your father, the king, clearly had the resource. Well, all that what talk, but yeah, there was some inconsistency with her as well, and I don't know. I don't think you can look at that character and not think there's some at least exploitation involved with her particular
outfit.
Or lack thereof.
garb.
Yeah.
Sure, we could almost call it that.
Yeah, almost garb, which I'm like, considering the wilderness she's in, she stays pretty clean.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's a lot of mud around, and yet, she's wearing it. But
let me ask you something, Mark.
yes.
Have you spent a whole day running through the woods almost naked? Have you ever? Then you're speaking from a position of non-experience, my friend. Everyone knows when you're not wearing clothing, you don't get dirty.
He never actually answered that question,
So moving on to Larn.
They roll differently in Wisconsin.
That's right, man. We jump into lakes in January, so
Well, when you do a sauna correctly, you have a steam, and then you go jump naked into a snowbank.
That's right. And then we moving on now before we talk about me running through the woods sans clothing. We have Larn, who this guy, he tries and he
fuck Larn, let's talk about Darkwolf. Come on.
Okay.
He tries.
We'll get to Darkwolf. I was saving the best for last, Jason.
All right.
I'm sorry. I really do want to see the character list on this, because we have the one we could have Nekron as Mr. Jerkface, as I think Ray said, is like the character list, and then Tigra, boobs, Larn.
Yo-yo.
Larn, he tries. It's just like this is like the pitch for all the people.
I mean, he does try. There's moments he's also kind of yo-yo in a sense, in that he's a little more consistent, but kind of like the Tigra character, there's parts where he's actually showing flints of like being all right, the hero you want him to be, and then there's times when you're just going, what are you doing, Larn? I mean, Glenn, as far as heroes go, Larn is Larn, isn't he?
Yeah, he's as heroic as his name sounds.
I mean, don't you want something a little more from your hero than what we get from Larn?
Yeah, generally, yeah. It's like, oh, who will save us? I guess I will. Who are you? Larn.
Tis I, Larn.
And everybody sighs. Makes you wonder if in his tribe he was that guy who volunteered for everything, and people are just like, oh.
I think he was. No, seriously, that's the one thing I do like about. I will say that Larn is a little more consistent than most of the characters in that. At the beginning, they said like, "Well, we're," basically the first lines of the movie are, I'm paraphrasing, "Well, we're totally hosed here. Larn, go catch up with your brothers," or something like that. And he caught me as that he was the last survivor of his tribe, not because he was so agile and athletic, but he was just dumb luck.
Right.
And he is agile. He is athletic. He's also not terribly bright. And he wants to be the hero, and he has a real need, a real purpose all throughout the film. And he is trying, like you said, he does try, and he is trying to be this hero, but he's just not that good at it yet. I mean, he's a real novice, and as far as that goes, I'm like, okay, I can get with that. I can get with that he has a lot of the willpower and he has the athletic ability, but he's really a novice at this. He doesn't really know what he's doing.
Right.
I can kind of get behind that character even a little more than I could some of the others. Even if he's not, it's like, oh shit, Conan must have been busy. Damn it. Could we get anybody? At Ator? Was Ator busy? Oh crap!
we got Deathstalker around.
Please,
Nice.
anybody. We'll take
I guess we got Larn. So yeah, I mean, you're right in that sense. I guess. Yeah. Now that you mentioned it, in the beginning, it's just kind of like, yeah, there's nothing more you can really do here, Larn. Go with your brothers. So yeah, with that, he is the guy who's really the hero in learning and getting his trial by fire, so to speak. And yeah, it's just for him being featured on the cover a bit. Of course, he's not the guy who's at the highest peak on the cover. That would be Darkwolf. And Jason, how do you feel about Darkwolf?
Well, Darkwolf is, the hero that we all want in the movie. He's the the Conan or the Tarzan or the whatever. He's absolutely infallible, and he's a cool character. I like the that I think the first time we see him and the last time we see him, it's basically the Death Dealer painting by Frank Frazetta. Is really kind of cool, and yeah, he's just that Wolverine, he's just that uber cool hero. So
He
character.
He's the one that you were kind of hoping Larn would end up being, since we're introduced to him, and then he comes along and you're like, why do we even have Larn? Let's just go with Darkwolf.
Well, yeah, but I do think it does add a little bit of a nice wrinkle or a complexity to a pretty simple story, that you don't just have the single male hero. You've got Larn he tries, and Darkwolf, who he can look up to and can get him out of jams and kind of help things move along. And so I do kind of like the interplay, I guess, between all the different characters, as opposed to just having Larn or just having Darkwolf.
Yeah. Everybody, I mean, Darkwolf is the cool character. He's the guy who, rolled really good when they were creating his character. He all had the high stats when they rolled.
18 again?
Oh, gee, what should my wardrobe be? Axe and a wolf's head. Okay, there you go.
What class should I be? I should be fighter. Nah, I think the class I'll be is Deus Ex Machina. That's the class I will be.
How'd you feel with Darkwolf, Glenn?
Yeah. I remember loving him when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then wanting to play a character like that in D&D, but I mean, it's the fact that it's like, what's he been doing up till now? It's like he waited, like, okay, the world's almost dead. I guess I'll go do something. Like, what was he like? He must have just been off somewhere.
He was battling alcoholism.
I was gonna say he was grinding to level up like 100 times, so he could go,
there you go.
hiding off, killing pigs in a forest.
He killed 1 million pigs in the forest to get to the level he's at. He was, though. I mean, I love this character. This was the guy that you really, you're supposed to dig, and you're just like, man, if I was anyone, I'd just say, yeah, we'll just go let him just go ahead. No, we've got you, Darkwolf. We'll watch your back. Just go ahead, take care of things. Scotty D, how'd you feel with Darkwolf?
I liked him a lot. Of course, he's the coolest. I mean, everybody says, like, yeah, I mean, okay, you got Larn, who's your hero, and he's the prototypical hero. He's got the loincloth and going and everything like that. But Darkwolf is just the badass of the group. And he is a supporting character, and I think a lot of people are kind of upset that he's the supporting character. And you think that he's cashed his chips to save Lauren's ass halfway through the movie, only to show up at the end of the movie and save his ass again. And he's the total death dealer painting. I watched the extras years ago when I first bought the Blu-ray to this movie. I watched the extras years ago, and I think they explained why they didn't just call him Death Dealer, and I can't remember what it was because I didn't watch him this time. But he's dead. But that was definitely who the character was. He was like just this totally jacked up person. I didn't really catch like who he was. I mean, what's his deal? Do we ever really know, or is he just basically like the Clint Eastwood type man with no name type character?
So in the extras, they explain that, and it was cut out of the movie, but in the original script, he is Nekron's father.
Oh,
Nekron's father. Oh, I
Correct.
thought they were going to say he was Larn's father. Or
No,
something.
no, he's Nekron's father, and there's one of the extras. There's
I could have watched these too, and I didn't do it. So
well, they talk about it a little bit in the director's commentary, but they also there's an extra with the guy that played Nekron. He kind of goes through the diaries that he wrote on set, and there's actually they show the page of the script, and he goes through it where it kind of reveals that whole relationship there, but that was cut out of the final film. And Bakshi and this guy that wrote the diaries, neither of them they were like, well, why did we do that? Why did we cut that out? And there's no good explanation for why they cut it out. At least not given in the extras anyway. So
well, that is a shame, because I think that would have added just a nice little extra depth to both characters with them.
This movie needs depth. I'm just let's not die. We may think let's not lie here. We may think the movie is really cool and stuff like that, but this movie could kind of use a little more depth.
Well, no,
I don't know. I think Tigra's cleavage was pretty deep.
Well,
oh, go ahead, Jason.
Go ahead. Well, no, I was gonna say that in the extras, I thought it was a kind of a cool quote from Bakshi. He was like, "Yeah, we ended up with a comic book script. It certainly wasn't Tolkien, and it wasn't Wizards." And you could, I think it was Frazetta had the relationship with Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway, and kind of got them to write the script. And the script is, I mean, it's a lot like a Conan comic that Roy was writing at the time, and it was. I think Bakshi was deferring to Frazetta. I think Bakshi wanted to make a little different of a movie than it turned out to be, but that's kind of what Frank wanted, and he was just, at least that's the impression I got from the director's commentary. Bakshi was, he wasn't disappointed, or he wasn't, but you could kind of tell that it was like, Frank wanted that, so that's what we went with.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're all right that it could have used a little more depth. That's why I wanted to explore the characters, because this is basically good versus evil thing far the story goes. There's not a whole lot as far as the actual plot of anything. We've got a good guy who's going against bad guy, and they fight. And we've got our hero trying to find the damsel in distress. So but then you have Darkwolf. So Ray, just before we move on, your thoughts with Darkwolf, anything that had?
Well, just going off the, cut storyline about he's Nekron's father, maybe they cut it because they didn't want to damage his credibility. I mean, okay, so this guy nailed Juliana because she seems pretty awesome. But, I mean, he's really, he is the classiest character in the movie. I mean, with Larn, he's very magnanimous. He could totally just be condescending toward Larn. They're sitting here. So who do we got going after Tigra? Maverick and Goose? No, we've got Darkwolf and Larn. But Darkwolf totally treats Larn as an equal throughout. He's very cool about it. He's the classiest character in the movie. So yeah, I guess that's the only bit I would add about Darkwolf.
And who knows, maybe they didn't want to step on Empire Strikes Back territory since they're already stepping on Conan territory with
Right.
Darkwolf being the dad. Though, see, for me, and this is just my thought with Darkwolf, I almost thought, and I know I'm probably reaching, I apologize, but I almost got like he was nature's defender, and he was either an embodiment of the planet or the world that they had, nature. He was like he came about because it was nearing the end of the world, and nature's like, well, the humans aren't doing it, so let's wake our ultimate warrior, basically, with Darkwolf. And that's the way I kind of thought of him as.
Yeah, I think you're on maybe onto something a little bit there, because even in the movie, there's hints that he's something more than maybe what's on the surface. Because isn't it Larn is in the ruins, and doesn't he see Darkwolf's head like sculpted into the wall of the ruins, just briefly, and it's look old and run down. It's like, okay, well, how old is Darkwolf, or who is this Darkwolf? Was he worshipped by people? It's just so I think there's little hints there that there might be a greater backstory, but just hints.
Yeah, I mean, there are just hints, but you're right with it. And whether or not he is that statue of ruins were maybe him, or maybe he's just from a line of defenders of nature,
sure,
to speak. Because I mean, in the final climax, he's the one, not he's trying, Larn. It's actually Darkwolf who's like, yeah, I can't get too brainwashed by Nekron's powers, and gives him an axe to the head. I
never explained that either, but that whole storyline would have helped explain that.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I got kind of the gist that he was something maybe a little more, he was part of nature, connected to the world more, or, an embodiment. He was something that was created by the world, because the world they have constructed, I love the world that they construct here. And it just seemed natural that that type of setting and that type of world, you might have some kind of physical embodiment of nature fighting back at all these idiots who are ruining it. But because this world, and that's what I want to talk about next, and then I want to go to the questions you guys have. I love this world that they painted, though, because this is like one of the most deadly planets ever to live on. And I loved that angle. Scott, what'd you think of this world they painted with pretty much, danger at every single corner? And I'm not just talking about the guys that are following Nekron.
Well, aside from the shape of the people, the closest you get to seeing the finished print of like Frazetta's artwork is in the painted backgrounds. And these painted backgrounds are beautiful. Incidentally, the one bit of trivia I did manage to get is that the painted backgrounds were all done by two people. One of whom was the guy who wound up doing the illustrations and the paintings for Dinotopia.
Huh.
And the other one was Thomas Kincaid.
Painter of light.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Yeah. The guy
Thomas Kincaid is in the credits. Yep.
Who never painted a cabin that didn't make him $1 million. I mean, he did all the backgrounds, but no, the backgrounds are, and I actually find that kind of funny because there's so much character to the backgrounds. There's so much like beautiful little inconsistency, and some of these backgrounds are establishing shots, and they're there for a while, and then some of these backgrounds, these painted backgrounds, are only in there for a couple seconds.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many of these backgrounds, but they are beautiful things, and they kind of have that very pulpy tradition of being both kind of showing a beautiful landscape, but showing this savage, untamed land where the wrong step could get you killed. And that was actually probably some of the most. It's odd, but that was probably some of the most impressive stuff in the movie, were these just beautiful backgrounds that really helped shape this world. Far more, I'd say, than, or at least as much as any of the rotoscoped animation did.
Right. And as far as the rotoscoping goes, you almost think this is more cell animated than rotoscope. it didn't even dawn on me that this was still rotoscoping the way it was drawn.
Oh yeah, they do show. I mean, one thing I did manage to catch in the very few extras I did watch is that they do have black and white footage of the actual rotoscoped footage on there with like these beautiful like male and female models, doing all the running and the jumping and slow motion throwing the spears and stuff like that. And I mean, and they show how they go over it, and it's yeah, they definitely did it. I mean, basically, if you look at it, because it's all like in black and white, if you look at it, the the shots they used to rotoscope it looks kind of like if Calvin Klein directed Tarzan. I mean, yeah.
We actually have one of our folks who are watching us live right now, and they kind of wanted to ask, what did you think of the nighttime scenes in here? Glenn, what did you think of the nighttime scenes, the way they were drawn and the artistry of this world they created?
I love the artistry of everything. It's I think they create some beautiful imagery in this film.
And I thought so too. I thought the nighttime scenes felt like nighttime. Didn't they, Ray? Did these feel? I mean, it was, I thought, really well handled, the difference between day and night in this.
Yeah, and not just with the nighttime scenes. When you had characters emerging from the fog, I was particularly impressed with that. I thought they did. Yeah, I would agree. They did a solid job with the nighttime scenes. Daytime scenes, that background environmental visual, I guess.
It does have that more art feel that we've seen with Bakshi. I mean, with Wizards and with American Pop. And Jason, how about you with the artistry in this and the way some of those nighttime scenes were drawn and just this world they painted, literally?
Yeah, literally. I think they did a really good job of, evoking Frazetta and pulp, pulp fantasy and adventure, and I'm always a fan of the monsters, of the creatures, and the giant lizard and the stuff, the creatures that weren't rotoscoped that look, what do you got? The giant lizard, you got the wolves, you got that nasty pill bug thing that attacks the guy's arm, and the tentacled creature in the lake. I mean, I love the way all those were done, and I just thought it really. Those were some of my favorite parts of the movie. And I thought they just did a really good job. But it also kind of to the point with the night scenes and the backgrounds. It just the atmosphere that it created, and I thought they did a really good job. But again, Frazetta was right there. He was producer on it, so he was. Bakshi talks about the artists, basically freaking out because they were like, I can't draw with Frazetta looking over my shoulder. Like, this is too much pressure, because he's such an icon and such an influence on those animators. So. But I think it shows in the final product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. The artistry stands out, I think, more so than anything in this film, and that unique environment they created. It really, that's what caught me more than this. Even more so than what we got in Wizards. This one really felt like those living pulp covers of Conan and the other fantasy pulp films. Books, that were out at the time. And that's what captured me with it. And I think it gives a nice, unique style to it. And there is a bit more style over substance in this film.
Yeah, a little.
Just a little, I think, with it. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I'm all down with visuals with it. And yeah, so I think we'll jump here to your guys' questions, and we'll start with Jason. Jason, did you have a topic or something that we haven't touched on yet that you maybe want to talk about?
Well, I thought it was interesting. Fire and Ice is rated PG. There's no nudity, no sex or implied sex, really. So, do you guys think that was the right decision, artistically or financially? And then, if it had been made as a hard R movie. I mean, this is coming after Heavy Metal and after Conan, where there's nudity and sex, and how do you think that would have affected the movie's popularity and its legacy?
Ooh, nice. Ray, why don't we start with you?
Frankly, I think it's better as a PG movie, but it's it's playing what if and trying to visualize an R version of the movie.
Right.
I think if this had come about post 1985, it would have had a PG-13 rating on it.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know how much it would have affected. I think it would have made it more of a cult classic, especially at least for the next 15 years. With another R-rated animated movie that's American made.
Yeah.
Heavy Metal being the one that I mostly knew at that time about that. Nowadays, I don't know how it would have affected it. I imagine it would still be a cult classic. Just my personal opinion, though. I like it as is.
Sure. And nothing wrong with that. And Scott, how about you? Do you think the R rate, if it made an R rating, it would have been more successful or more possibly popular?
It would have definitely been more successful, if not on initial release, in the years following, I'd definitely say. Because I think it would have been kind of lumped in with like Heavy Metal, which isn't that strong of a movie, guys.
No.
I mean, it's about as strong. I mean, it's not bad, but it's about as strong as Fire and Ice is, and just like like movies like that, I think it would have probably done better. I'm trying to visualize it here, and I can see where they can go R. I think it works fine as a PG movie. I can see where they could go more with an R rating. As I mentioned earlier, Roy Thomas and Jerry Conway wrote the original script for Conan the Destroyer, and that got lightened up by Universal. They decided to make that more of a kids movie, which, of course, if you've seen Conan the Barbarian, it's completely opposite of what that was. In their hands, Conan the Destroyer would have been still like a fun adventure movie, but it was a lot more violent. There was more sex. Like Conan boned both, Sarah Douglas and Olivia Dabo in the movie, and because he's Conan, and and so I mean, like they were like primed to make R-rated material. So I don't know if that was ever in the cards. I think that at the time, and I think it might have played better, but it plays fine as is. Its legacy would probably be more remembered if they went R. And to answer your first question, I think if it was released in the 90s, it would have been PG-13. At the time, no, PG's fine rating. A lot of people, I know that I don't necessarily speak for all of you guys because some of you are my age. I think one or two of you might be younger. Maybe one or two of you are older. I don't know. I'm not going to get into your personal business, but PG-13 came out in 1984, 1 year after this movie, and when it came out, it really was the rating. It wasn't supposed to be the rating that everything gets. It was supposed to be something that would quiet down the parents who freaked out about Temple of Doom and everything like that. So for the first few years, PG-13 was really close to R. I mean, really close to R. In fact, if you ask me, the very first film to ever be rated, to be released with a PG-13 rating, Red Dawn, there's no doubt in my mind that would be rated R today. As part of my proof, I will point out the PG-13 remake of Red Dawn, which is not even close to being as heavy as the original. So I think that it would have gotten around with a PG all throughout the 80s. And I think it was the right rating for it. I think PG is fine. PG just means parental guidance. It doesn't mean that it's okay to send the kids to it. It means that, no, look, there's some stuff in it, but it's not going to, traumatize your children, you
No.
know. So, and I think that anytime after 1980, after the summer of 1989, which is when I see the rating changing, thanks to Batman being rated PG-13 and Indiana Jones being rated PG-13, and Ghostbusters 2 going more kiddie and being rated PG and not doing well at all, or at least compared to the original. That's when I think the ratings changed. Was that after that summer?
Yeah.
I think that if it was released anytime after that, it would have been PG-13. Otherwise, it would have been PG, and it would have been fine to answer the first part. I kind of answered your questions in reverse order. Sorry.
Glenn, any added thoughts with this on the rating of it? Does it work as PG-13, and do you think it'd be maybe better as an R film?
Possibly. I don't know. Maybe it's hard to say. I mean, I don't think that it necessarily needs to be an R film, but I don't think it would hurt it.
Sure. It felt like it leaned towards it, though, because it does get dark in spot. I mean, it's kind of leaning like, yeah, we could go R here, but we don't. At least that's the feeling I got for some of those scenes with it. But I think it, yeah, I think this rating is all right. It surprises me that it's PG because it comes up in a lot of lists as being the mature, and it's probably because of the Tigra character.
I mean, that's the most in it. I mean, there's a lot of violence in it, I guess. But
a lot of on-screen deaths.
I kind of look at it though, like 3 years after this movie, after PG-13 came out, in fact, we got Star Chaser: The Legend of Orin, which looks like a nice kiddie movie. And if you watch the movie, no, it's more adult-oriented and has a lot of really graphic on-screen deaths. And I would say that it's even more the sex appeal, the eroticism, this implied eroticism that would make people kind of like raise their eyebrows and stuff. But I think it would have I think PG is still the right rating for it because I think the rating system is all messed up.
Yeah. That is definitely that's a whole nother podcast right there.
Oh, it really is. And I don't even have a dog in the fight. You know, I'm in my 40s. I can see whatever I want to, but it still pisses me off because I just think that people have grown more tolerant in the wrong areas and grown more intolerant in others.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. So that's a good question because I had kind of had that thought too of going, wow, they could kind of lean on R with this, but maybe again being R too, it would maybe lean way too closer to Conan, which came out just the year before. So where it would be R, you could almost see them being even more like Conan.
Yeah, but there were how many films ripped off Conan? I mean, they were almost all rated R. I mean, except for and maybe the second Ator movie, they were all rated R. And so, because they were all expected to have boobs and stuff like that in it.
Boobs and blood,
Boobs and blood, yeah. I mean, that was the deal. I mean, that was basically the story was that Roger Corman went to see Conan the Barbarian opening weekend, and he came back with mixed emotions at New World Pictures, and he said, "Damn it, we should have made that movie." So, for the next 2 years, they did over and over and over again.
Glenn, how about you? Did you have a topic or something we haven't touched on yet for the group tonight?
I do not.
No? Oh, that's okay.
No, it's. I mean, we've covered so much already. There's not a lot left in this, except that we're discussing that Conan actually copied Sword and the Sorcerer. So.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yes.
Well, they all kind of came out at the same time. I'd say Sword and the Sorcerer was more D&D, and Conan was kind of traditional Viking,
and released
Viking shit.
What?
Released by the same studio.
Yes.
Yes, Universal did both.
Yeah, well, I think they even used some of the same props, but Ray, how about you? Did you have a topic tonight at all, possibly for the group you want to talk about?
Nothing significant.
No.
So I will abstain on that count. But thank you.
Sure. Scotty D, you have anything?
It wasn't a big one. I will just say, okay, this was the only thing I could come up with was that Mark, you and I and Andrew talked about American Pop like a week or two ago.
Yeah.
And this was the last film that Ralph Bakshi released theatrically for a long time. And the second to last film he released theatrically, period, so far. It ended basically this great, 11 or 12-year run for him. Because the only thing he had released theatrically after this was Cool World.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but he had a ton of movies beforehand. Bakshi did basically two types of movies. He did these kind of weird counterculture movies, and then he did these fantasy movies. My question would be, where do you think Fire and Ice stacks up against the quality of his other work?
Ooh, nice question. Glenn? Any thoughts, Glenn? Are you with us, Glenn? Did we lose Glenn?
Is he thinking?
We'll come back to Glenn. Jason, what do you think? Where does Fire and Ice rate within the Bakshi catalog?
Well, I listened to the American Pop episode, and I've not seen that movie. And I really, I know, I want to see that. And I honestly haven't seen Fritz the Cat. I haven't seen Heavy Traffic. So, I mean, I've seen Cool World, Wizards. What am I missing? But so I don't know that I'm the best, to place this movie in his canon. But I would say that it's a solid entry, but it's from what I understand, it's no American Pop or So I guess I'm maybe not the best judge on that.
No, it's okay. But out of the ones you've seen, where would you rate it? Is this one of your more favorite out of the ones you've seen? Or
I like it. I like it better than Cool World.
Oh, there you go. Well,
I don't know if that's saying a whole lot. I don't know what the consensus in this group is of Cool World, but I think I like it. I like it better than Wizards, and I don't know if that's that's kind of a controversial position there, probably, but and I think it's because it it really speaks to the 13-year-old in me, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And there's nostalgia there, and kind of it really I'm a fan of Frazetta and Conan and Edgar Rice Burroughs, and it just kind of it touches on a lot of that stuff, and to me the story's really pretty weak, but there's other things that make up for it, and so I'd just say it's pretty solid entry for me.
Nice. And Ray, how about you in the Bakshi catalog of what you've seen?
Yeah, I should point out the caveat. I have not seen Heavy Traffic or American Pop.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I have the nostalgia bias going here, and I freely admit that. But that said, I prefer Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
I would put, and I think if I were being objective, I would say Fritz the Cat is probably a better movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't see Fritz the Cat until I think the first time I saw Fritz the Cat, and I now have it on DVD, but that's when I first saw it when I got the DVD like 5 or 6 years ago. So I would definitely put Wizards above Fire and Ice, but it's still. I watch Fire and Ice every year. Sure. I watch it with my kids. My kids are huge fans of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. Where I would rate it.
Cool. And Glenn, are you with us?
I'm back. Okay. I'm sorry. I had to take care of something.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. No, not a problem. I was just wondering if Google had decided that to try to cut you from our our presence. So
Google knows better.
Google knows better. So where would you rate, Scotty D was asking, where would you rate out of the body of Ralph Bakshi's work that you've seen, where would you rate Fire and Ice? One of the better ones? Where would you put it?
I mean, nostalgia makes me put Lord of the Rings higher than it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Fire and Ice would be kind of upper middle. Below, I think below Wizards, below Heavy Traffic, below Fritz the Cat, but above above stuff like Cool World and Coonskin. Probably, I don't know about American Pop. It's been so long since I've seen that I don't remember it that well.
Right. And Scotty D, your own question. Where would you put Fire and Ice?
I don't have a very detailed answer. I will say that I too have not seen every Bakshi film. I've seen about half of the theatrical release films he's done. But it would be towards the bottom. However, which is not to say that it's a bad movie. It's still a decent movie. It's still fun. It's just not quite as, deep or detailed, and considering that it was his last hurrah for, I think, 9 years until Cool World, it kind of seemed like ending with a whimper rather than a bang. Cool World, to go into that, I think that the animated sequences of that movie are incredible. That was my most awaited movie of that year. While everybody else is waiting for Batman Returns, I was waiting for Cool World. And but the animated sequences are great. The live action ones not so much. But Fire and Ice would probably be towards the bottom, but that's not a slam on Bakshi or the film. I think it's still a decent, very entertaining movie. It's
But would
not in depth. Would
you put it above or below his Deputy Dog episodes?
I want to see those Deputy Dog episodes.
Yeah, so do I
I've never
now.
seen them.
So do I.
I want to see them. I want to find out if they're on YouTube or if I can order a DVD or something. I want to see that. I will say that he did he did one of my favorite mid '80s cartoons. Is that he did the Mighty Mouse cartoon that came out in the mid '80s, and if you get to watch those are freaking nuts. I was never even a huge fan of the old Mighty Mouse, but the one from the mid '80s I liked because it was just so bizarre. And I think when I was a kid, it was probably the first Bakshi I was allowed to see.
But yeah, I mean, and they were risky too. The Mighty Mouses. I remember that when they were re-releasing them. Some of those were pretty doggone risky.
Oh yeah, he got away with a lot of weird stuff, and it was very Bakshian style. I mean, if you can make a direct line between that and say the animation of Cool World a few years later, because there's all this really weird jagged art, everything is exaggerated. It's basically it's like Mighty Mouse and Tex Avery on acid, those things. So those are great, and I would love to see his old Deputy Dog episodes.
It reminded me of some of those Tom and Jerry episodes you used to watch that they used to work in, where you'd be watching them as a kid and going, what the fuck is going on?
Well, those old Tom and Jerry episodes I used to watch and say, wow, that's racist.
Well, yeah, that's too.
Whenever they'd have the
the owner,
the one that was obviously not the best not the best depiction of African Americans.
No.
Even if they were only from the knees up, it still managed to be offensive.
Yeah, it did. And Mighty Mouse did kind of play around with what he got away with. Was surprising. But for me, Fire and Ice, out of all of them, I would say it doesn't feel like Bakshi if you look at his other ones with the way the rotoscoping even is handled in that. I would say out of the limited ones that I've watched, because I haven't watched all of them, but even if we would compare to the ones that we've covered on this show, where we've talked about Wizards and we've talked about American Pop, and you go to this, it is a different style than those other two in many ways. The way the art is, a lot more. And the way it was hand drawn and just the way it was handled, I thought was different. It had a different feel artistically than I think the other ones that we've covered here, especially on the show in this past few months. So, I'm not saying it's a bad one. I think I prefer Like American Pop and Wizards a little more. And Lord of the Rings, yeah, it's a little bit in a different category because Gollum still scares me to this freaking day. So, I think we'll wrap it up here tonight for Fire and Ice. Though I will say the one thing with Fire and Ice, when you get to the very end, because we are in the spoiler room, why didn't they just unleash the lava in the beginning?
Well, they would have taken out the entire
I know
village,
why.
and they were kind of hoping that they wouldn't do that before then. Then they were like, well, okay. Yes. Like, well, we can't do it. They'll kill everybody. They're already dead. Oh, well. Then,
okay. We'll just unleash the lava.
But my thing was that he spends this time like, oh, we have to get my daughter. I love her so much. And then when they tell him his son's dead, he's just like,
But my daughter, damn it.
Oh yeah, but his son, come on.
His son
Taro was Prince Whelp, whiny little punk.
Well, he really seemed like
He was horrible.
But he was the one that they were priming to be like the heir. Obviously, he was always at his side. That was always thing. It is sad, but it's like there's like
But father, I mean, he was like whining. It was.
Did you also notice that was the character that probably looked most like Conan? I wondered if
I
wonder if there was something there to that, like just like let's make the whiny little brat look just like Conan, just to upset the balance.
Well, look at who his dad was. Yeah, we killed the Neanderthal messengers. Let's send my son, the heir, and two other red shirts to go into the lair of the villain to negotiate. I'm like,
he's a terrible king.
Good thing he's in charge of all the lava.
Yeah, right.
We don't want his hand close to the button that releases the lava.
Exactly.
More Trump analogies here. What's
not
at all. Not at all. Just when he releases the lava will be huge.
People will love it. They love the lava. I know. I've asked them.
And we'll make the Ice Kingdom pay for it.
Yeah.
I think we're definitely going to end it for the evening. This is the part where you can find out where these fine folks are when they're not here. Glenn, why don't you go ahead and tell these lovely folks who haven't heard your sweet, sweet pipes where they can find you at?
You can find me on the YouTubes with Guy in a Bunker Productions and the BB Bunkers. Same thing on Facebook, or just follow me on Twitter at Guy in a Bunker, or check out my website, guyinabunker.com.
Awesome. And Jason, when's Chaotic Evil 2 coming
out? You search for Chaotic Evil in Facebook and make sure you get the right Chaotic Evil, the one about the movie. Mm-hmm. And there'll be updates on there. I plan to update it sometime in the next 2 or 3 years.
Awesome. I'm excited. But yes, check out his original. Is Chaotic Evil, is that on the YouTubes or?
Yeah, if you can find the Facebook page, there'll be a Vimeo link there to watch Chaotic Evil.
Ooh, going Vimeo, nice.
Yeah.
And Ray, the man of mystery, he can be found here. And Ray, are your reviews still out there in the interwebs?
I think most of them have finally been
archived.
Even beyond that, yeah, the parent company that had them, I think they the whole publication that they were done for, they got rid of those links a year or two back. I occasionally check, and it's been a year or two since they've been up, unfortunately. But I get it. It had been a number of years, so
that's just what makes you more of a man of mystery.
Exactly.
Yes. And Scotty D, how about you?
Vimeo is awesome, and that's also, in addition to Jason's film, it's where you can catch my web series, Movieocrity, all about exploitation films. You can catch that at vimeo.com/channels/movieocracy. And if you want to read all my articles, like the one I just published on the best films of 2016, or all the podcasts I'm on, or everything like that, you can catch all that at www.movieocracy.com.
Fantastic. And you find links to all these fine folks at specialmarkproductions.com, where we've got the Spoiler Room archive, and we're also on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Follow us on the Spoiler Room PDCS Twitter. That's Spoiler Room PDCS is our Twitter handle on there, or you can find us on the Facebook. We are in a bit of a transition. I'm moving things from pages to actually groups so we can interact with you better. So look for that soon on Facebook. Should be happening beginning of April, where there will actually be a Special Mark Productions group, a Spoiler Room group, and my Final Cut reviews will also have an actual group rather than page, because those have evolved over the years, and it's better to do a group than a page, I found out. So look for that and so much more at specialmarkproductions.com. We thank you for tuning in and hope you've enjoyed our discussion. And until next time, folks, say good night, gentlemen.
Good night,
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.